Okay, so that's those are just a couple headlines we wanted to talk about because we want to spend the majority of the show talking about uh, Rogue. So before we do that, we want to thank our other sponsor today, and that is Thirdzy, the best rest and recovery collagen on the market. So I had a 9.5 hour plane ride over to Scotland, or probably just to England. Then I had to fly to Scotland. I left at 8:40 p.m. Pacific time Tuesday night. And I was like, I got to try and sleep. Took some Thirdzy. Tommy, I PR'd my sleep on the plane. I got nearly 4 hours of sleep on the plane. I've never slept that much on a plane. That is proof positive that Thirdzy works. It has great ingredients in it, no melatonin, so it's not habit forming. It has GABA, L-theanine, magnesium that are designed to help calm your central nervous system so you can sleep deeper, longer, and get to sleep faster. And like I said, had it before. I cannot sleep on planes. I am terrible at it. And I got, according to my sleep tracker, like almost 4 hours of sleep. So
Damn.
enough where I could function when I landed and got on the connecting flight to Aberdeen from Heathrow and showed up at like 6 p.m. Wednesday night. So I was all kinds of jacked up, but I got enough sleep. Check out Thirdzy. Go to thirdzy.com/TEF and your discount will automatically be applied. So they've changed it up a little bit. We had a couple people hit us up that said, hey, your code's not working. Just go to thirdzy.com/TEF. Bam. 20% automatically is going to be applied to your order. So you're going to want to.
I had almost an opposite, but also effective experience at the hospital because I brought some of the travel packs with me.
Mhm.
And the very first night that we had Miles, um, wasn't much sleep, if I'm
Nope.
going to be honest, and a lot of like, what the heck's going on? It just so worked out where um, he had one of his best eating sessions, and Tiff, he fell asleep in his bassinet. Tiff fell asleep, and I was like, I think this is my window to get some sort of sleep. But I was like, just from the day, I was like, I had this like hum and
Oh,
like
yeah.
vibration to me, like my certain nervous system was cranked up like a Spinal Tap guitar amp, and
211.
and and it was like I was like, I have to do something for this, and so don't try this at home. Probably better ways to do this. Just ripped a corner off and just dry scooped some direct. Um, grabbed one of the cups of ice water that they're giving us. From time to I just grabbed it, slammed it, and just hit the
Yep.
pillow. I slept for like 2.5 hours, and
Perfect.
then and he like it was like the longest session that Miles slept. And even though I didn't get the full night, I popped up and I was like, let's go again.
Yep. That's awesome. Thirdzy.com/TEF. They're great people too. Doing the right things for the right reasons. So, okay, let's talk about what we wanted to spend the majority of the show about, and is the Rogue Invitational. And obviously I had a firsthand look at it. I had a different perspective being behind the scenes and seeing things from my perch and calling the action and watching all of it. And I have been trying to give it some time before I really make my mind up as to the way I really think I felt about it. Because when you're part of it, something like that, or any kind of competition, you walk away and you're like, oh man, that was awesome. That was really cool. And then there's some recency bias there, and then that fades. But I can honestly say that was probably the best competition I think I've ever been a part of from top to bottom. And again, I had a little bit of a unique perspective on it, so I wasn't out there with. I talked to some fans. Uh, they all seemed to be having a great time. I got to experience a little bit of it as a fan. My brother
Hmm.
and his wife flew over from Seattle. They've always wanted to travel to Scotland, and so they thought this was a great opportunity. And we went to the Legends Happy Hour, and we did the behind the scenes tour, which is a lot of
Oh,
fun. It was cool. They took people around, and they had some of the legends there telling stories and stuff. And Dan Bailey was there, Matt Chan, Tanya Wagner, Kristen Clever, uh, uh, Sam
that's awesome.
Briggs. I think Margot Alvarez was part of it. Tommy Hackenbrook, and they're just it was really well done. They took people to the warm up area, and the athletes were swapping stories and stuff. And I was trying to get Matt Chan to tell one that he was reluctant to tell.
Did it involve regionals?
About being in the athlete corral. Yeah, they talked about what it was
Yes.
like to be in the athlete corral. And Matt Chan was like 5 feet in front of me, and I go up to him, and I just lean in his ear. I said, "Hey, man, why don't you tell the one about the blah 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 blah?" Blah. He goes, "No way." uh,
Hearing Marston tell that story is fantastic.
yeah,
That's just the way he tells it, but yeah.
and I know people are like, "Well, what is it?" I don't feel like I'm at liberty to tell. I feel like Matt
Uh,
Chan needs to tell it.
has has to
To
come from his mouth.
Yeah, it has to come from him. Um, but anyway, like, and then the only complaint I heard, and this isn't a complaint, but the only thing that fans said is like, "Oh, I just wish there were more options to eat around here."
Yeah,
Like,
that's all of the UK for you.
right. So, but what was your perspective? Because I know people at home watching have a much different perspective. You have to sit through breaks, you have to all that stuff because it was just like
Yeah,
constant. I mean, it just did not stop. So I think that was the part of it.
and I'm just kidding. UK, I've had some great food there. I went to Nando's. It
Yeah,
was
I had a
awesome.
toad in a hole.
Ooh,
It was
is that
really
like
good.
an egg in a hole, or is that
No,
like
it's like they had this baked pastry bowl, and they put a bunch of mashed potatoes on it and some really good sausage on top. I was like,
that's awesome?
I'll eat that all day long.
Absolutely. I I'm glad to hear that on your end it was because I think I talked about it. I talked about it on our Q&A with our patrons, and I talked about it with a few other people that sometimes you can feel the energy by the spectators' experience at home radiating off of what the broadcast is looking like, and you can tell the energy from the broadcast. And maybe that's from our experience, knowing what goes on behind the scenes and how that sometimes presents in the product that ends up being on
Mhm.
air. But it felt like things were clicking, and it felt like there was good energy, and that the overall atmosphere of the event was really, really good. Like vibe,
Mhm.
to quote the kids these days, vibes were high.
Yeah.
And it's funny because little things are like, clues to that. The lane markers,
Oh, the lane, the field time,
like the kind of like 3D lane markers that went up. When
dude,
those
they
came up
popped
the first,
up. I was like, "Oh my god, that's awesome!" And then I said, "Can we make that like the first down line so they can actually walk on top of it?" And they're like, "Can't do that yet." I went, "Okay, that's
soon. But yeah, that's like it feels like the like you said the first down line at Monday Night Football, or when they do the big swooping shot from the spider cam and they have the 3D like full page graphic that's like sitting out on the
yeah,
field
yeah,
and casting a shadow, that kind of stuff that just adds a little bit of a little bit of the magic stuff to the broadcast. And the atmosphere from the crowd was great. It was palpable through the screen, and the lighting was fantastic. They made it feel like this spectacular spotlight style event, super bright, easy to see despite like very dark colors, obviously.
yeah."
And not getting too into the weeds, but like the crowd falls off at just the right spot, so it doesn't feel like you're just I don't know. When there's like separation from the crowd on the floor, it
Mhm.
highlights what's going on the floor really well, and I liked it a lot. And the times I kind of switched back and forth to Pat at the desk, seeing some of the guests that he had on, and then just kind of playing with like the control over your viewer
Oh,
experience
how was
that you
that? I
had.
didn't know you did that.
Yeah, it was great. It was I will say that for me, watching some of it on delay at times because we thought we were going to the hospital. We weren't sure if we were going to go to the hospital. There's a couple times where like we kind of went through our little like checklist, like, are we going to go soon? All right, let's make sure everything's good. And I couldn't watch the event at that hour. And then I went back and watched. It made it really easy for me to dive in and pinpoint what I wanted and get what I wanted out of it. And be able to digest information very quickly, which was good.
Yeah. I thought I didn't get to see it, but back in the media area, kind of the production area, they had the VR headsets on. I I think that was pretty cool. Someone said, one of the members of our crew, oh yeah, it was Chad, who was our director for Strongman. He was checking the cross.
Mhm.
Like, I was sitting right there, and Brent Fikowski just like came right up to me. He goes, it was awesome.
Whoa.
They let him sample that. Yeah, but the crowd was fantastic. I love the mixture of the strongman and the CrossFit competitions. The interest in that, they were both the same. Like the crowd was up for all of it. Uh,
Mm.
and as we have said in the past at Dell Diamond, it seemed like oftentimes strongman was kind of the second, was sort of like the sub card, the undercard,
Mm.
and that was not the case here. Like they were up for this when Tom Stolman came out, they were going nuts, and they, Hathor. There were some really great moments in that, and I love the like the crossover between the two. How they let the power stairs out there for the duel. They use some of the same implements. It's obviously not as
Yeah.
heavy,
Yep.
and I love the pacing of it. Like it just it really convinced me that, and we've talked about this before, and there's a caveat to this, and you've said like if you're going to do this, you have got to have a very robust qualification process. But I feel like 20 athletes is the right amount.
Yeah.
Because 2 heats, they were all really exciting. We there was no like slow build up. It was like right off the bat, we're in this. Right off the bat, we're in. And the times weren't there wasn't a huge disparity between the
Yep.
winning time. And I mean, there was a couple times, but it just felt like it didn't it just moved really quickly. There was always a really good level of excitement. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, man, I just I think it's a retinder of what the sport can be when someone brings all the resources and all the right guns to bear.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, now
100%.
that's not, that's becoming fewer and farther between.
Yeah.
It is a
Yeah.
reminder there is something here, and I also think there is something to be said for the marriage between strongman and CrossFit. Like that just
Yeah.
for keeps it interesting.
Integrating other sports,
Yeah.
like other somewhat adjacent sports, right?
Mhm. Oh, and
Like,
something they did on site too and I got to give a shout out to Lauren Smith. So she was the in arena host. So if you've been to plenty of sporting events to where they have
mhm.
that crew that when they're on a TV timeout or something that hey, we're here with such and such from,
Yeah.
Sheboygan and he's a wallpaper enthusiast and we're going to give him a quiz. Can you guess the three? And they do that whole thing and whatever it is. And
I can't think of a more like ho hum guy to introduce to a
yeah,
crowd of drunk football fans
right.
than a.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like the in stadium experience.
I mean, yeah, like let's welcome, and they do all the games, and she was dealing with like hyping people up, dealing with people in the crowd. They had people out doing burpee competitions. They had like a drinking competition. They did the Simba Cam with kids that Pat Vellner's kid got on. They did like all this stuff that made it feel like while it's cheesy and fun, but it made it feel like a big time event. Like that's what you experience when you go to a NBA game or an NHL game or NFL. Like they have all that stuff going on to keep you entertained. Like it was just a neat little thing that they added that only the people on site saw. And Lauren did a hell of a job. Like that is a hard job to do. So I just got to give her props because she
You're
knocked it out
you're
of the park.
like the fourth or fifth person that I've seen say that.
Yeah.
Like you've told me that people on just like reading on IG or Reddit and stuff like that. I've seen people comment that like the energy in between was really well managed. That's funny they do the Simba Cam. That's I
They did the
love
Simba
that.
Cam, they did Kiss Cam, they did air guitar cam, they did dance cam,
Oh,
like all this stuff. Like it was just a lot of fun. And it kept you entertained. We had a marriage proposal that happened.
whoa,
Uh yeah, so it
that's
was
awesome.
it was really cool. But the venue was perfect. I mean, it is perfect as far as like what you were looking for a CrossFit event. It wasn't too big. It was modern. The seats were super nice. You went outside that arena. It felt like a convention center. They had vendor village all encapsulated in one like big exhibition hall. They had an area for the volunteers. There was a coffee shop. There was places to walk around. Like the weather was not going to be a factor. They had bagpipers walking around the whole time playing. Like people would walk in the morning and the bagpipers were outside playing Scotland the Brave and other songs.
Oh,
They were at the Rogue tent playing in front of that wall of plates that they have, the red and blue.
hmm.
I mean, it was everything was just top to bottom. I have no notes. Like this is what it should be. Like this is exactly what it should be. And I would love to see a world where we can get to the point in the game season where we can have enough of a qualifying process and enough like live competition to where we can get, maybe 20 athletes and 10 teams on the floor at the games and it moves and it's always exciting and there's
Yeah. Oof. I don't know if to me, I don't know if I feel like that's appropriate for the games. I think it's perfect for Row because of what they do from the athlete experience,
Mhm.
like from the check-in and everything like that, and every year being a little bit different and Rogue like throwing really cool resources at it, that it makes it like this very exclusive, elite, distilled experience that like getting to compete at Rogue, especially from a qualifying standpoint, like if you're not one of the invitees,
Mhm.
like it's something to hang your hat on. It's like one of the career experiences, right? Like getting to have the check-in with the kilt or the
Mhm.
guitar or the hat and boots and those kind of things are the like the mission, like you get the mission accomplished or like life goal unlocked kind of posts on IG. It's funny because going into it, the only after it was announced, the only thing I would have said was a little bit of a drag, and I think this is different from watching at home versus being in person the last couple of years, is the pacing of the duel is always a little tough
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's so fast and then there's so much dead
Mhm.
time as they calculate scores to get it right. But as a fan at home, given the circumstances of what I'm in, it was awesome to be like, go, 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 go. Okay, I get a break. Go knock out some things
Yeah.
real quick. Come right back, and I left the volume up, and I knew as soon as I heard you come in booming, I was like, all right, let's get back. Like
Mhm.
let's roll. And so the pacing actually worked for the off-site fan experience. I think a little bit better.
Yeah.
If you wanted to mix in you know mix in some laundry or switching things over to the dryer on a Saturday.
Yeah, and I think, Chase has made this suggestion is that you run, and I don't, you could probably do it. You run men, and then you bring the women out, and you run women, and then bring men back out and run men, and just kind of
Hmm.
keep it rolling like that.
Yeah.
So that's possibly an idea, but that's like, I thought the event itself was cool. And we'll talk about like the actual competition here, and
Mm.
who impressed and who are the biggest winners and all that kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, that's always the kind of the case of that, because there's like the timing is so you need, like, you got to be precise because the cut line.
Yeah.
I think there was one point they cut, it was like 1 second separated 10 people. It was like the top 10 were all separated by like a second.
Yeah. Yeah. And which is fun, and we don't really get that format anywhere else.
Hmm.
So I knowing that how Rogue is going to do it with the unique implements that they brought in each year, whether it was like what is it, like that like wheelbarrow load where it had to like tip over, you had to
Hmm.
like load one side until it tipped, and all those other new fun things. I think it's like, okay, this is something that they do, and obviously this is the Duel 4
Hmm.
that they do. So you're like, okay, I can gear up for it. I think if a lot of people tried to copy it, it would get kind of stale.
Yeah,
But yeah.
no, it's cool. Like, it's their thing. But let's talk about the competition, because we'll start on the women's side, where we got the showdown that we wanted with Tia and Laura. And if that were just between the two of them, and that was a best of 9 series, that drama, Tia wins 4, Laura comes roaring back, ties it at 4. We go into the ninth and deciding event. Like, that was awesome. And you always had that. This always happens. Tia goes out and does what she does and wins, the first 4 events. She's the only woman who's swept the entire first day. And after event 4, you're like, well, is she going to win every one? Well, then
Hmm.
here comes Laura. Laura goes first, 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 wins the next 4. And I mean, they were separate. They were far and away. I mean, Laura Horvath was, and we'll talk about Gabby in a second. Now, had she been there, it would have been closer, but she wound up being 220 points ahead of third place.
Yeah.
This
I mean,
was a two-person battle, and I loved watching it. Like, this, it was amazing.
it's what we were all excited for at the games this year
Mhm.
because for the first time, really since first time since Tia's reign began, she didn't have the crown. There was friction, there was adversity in that. Like I need to reclimb back up to the mountaintop. There
Mhm.
was very little doubts about whether or not she could do it, but seeing what Laura has done in recent years, battling back from tough finishes in 2019 and 2020 to start rattling off podium finishes again, and then obviously win in Tia's absence was like, all right, like here's some actual competition that we get to see, and it's unfortunate what happened to Gabby, both Gabby and Heinrich, obviously,
Mhm.
just an absolute shame. Because that's not an easy or quick injury to come back from. So it's not um, I'd have to obviously hear more about the severity of it, but it's like you cast their 2025 season, whatever the season is,
Mhm.
in doubt. And but I said I used this analogy with our patrons on Q&A. It felt like the first Rocky movie.
Yeah, it
Like
did.
Like Apollo comes out and it's just everyone's like, is this going to be a fight? Is this
Mhm.
just going to be Tia being Tia? Is Apollo Creed just going to go around and dancing and then obviously like Tia lands all these shots and you're like, oh well, this is going to be over quick. And here's Rocky getting off the mat, and throwing some vicious body shots and that was Laura like punching back and
Mhm.
landing some haymakers and what was it? Event six, seven, the one where like the duel. So it was event six, uh, where Tia actually like didn't make the finals. So you knew that Laura was like picking up like 6 to 7 spots on her, no matter what.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, maybe, you know, granted, I think Laura still finished what 60 points back after that last event, but it was like going into that, like maybe if Tia has another slip up like this is a conversation at least. And
Mhm.
even just having that little like spark for a second is more than we've had in
Yeah.
6 years,
Yeah.
right? Uh, and even with that, a lot of people say like, well, if Gabby hadn't gotten hurt, there's no guarantee Laura would have even been second. When Gabby got hurt, Laura, yeah, I think Laura was going to catch her regardless.
I do too, and I love the attitude that Laura was showing to this. No, I'm going to go out and do this. I loved it. I thought it was like it was just great. Like you said, it just added to that spark that we haven't had in a while. Whenever Tia's in the field, like there was
Yeah.
some like, oh man, this is getting kind of interesting.
Yep, 100%. When Gabby got hurt, Laura was the going into that event. Laura's only 20 points back, and you're going to tell me over the next 3 events that she wins, she's not going to make up 20 points.
Yeah.
Like that's, I think it would have played out that way in Laura's favor ultimately. But
Mhm.
um, the obviously Laura and Tia were the only two women that won events the entire weekend. Between them, they won all 9 events. But I think the gap, the fact that the third place finisher Ariel alone, who deserves a ton of credit,
Yes.
another podium finish at a major event, and games, doing great at Wadapalooza, podium at Rogue is just another like just awesome finish. I know so many people are pumped for her because of
Mhm.
just who she is as a person and an athlete and as a family, with her and Dylan and their daughter. She had 3 finishes outside of the top 10. She had an average finish of, I think it was eighth across the board. Eighth out of a field of 20 as your average finish to get you on the podium is pretty highly indicative of a topsy-turvy event overall. Now,
Yeah.
granted, bad events happen at Rogue. It's not uncommon for everyone to have that one event that's like, oof.
Mhm.
Even Fikowski had that 18th despite
Yeah.
finishing second, which we can talk about in a sec. Um, but it also just highlighted that how good Laura and Tia were, especially like because Rogue is unique in the implements. It's high power output, and for athletes usually coming in where they're like, "Oh, I haven't done this for a little bit," or "I haven't been training this because I've been taking
Mhm.
some time off the season a little bit." It's impressive that they were able to dial it up to that extent the entire time.
Yeah, and I think that, a couple of just people who I think deserve a shout out who stood out to me. Manon Enganese finished ninth, and I shouldn't be surprised because she usually does well this competition, but she seemed to be
Mhm.
like hanging around the front of a lot of heats, and she put up what one, two, three straight finishes of ninth or better. Then she had a 15th and three straight inside the top nine, and then she had a 13th, and then two
Mhm.
inside of seventh or better, and then she had a couple uh, bad fin. Her worst finish came in event eight, and then she had another 14th place finish, like outside the top 10. But I
Yeah.
was impressed with her. Emma Tall looked
Yep.
real
And
good.
sixth.
Alex Gazan, was in a podium spot all the way until the final event.
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, there was a lot of women who really I think stood out, and it was just kind of so fun to watch.
100%. Like super super impressive from them. And
Mhm.
I like I Alex, I'm not surprised by. She's been in this like podium, um what is it? Like the podium orbit for
Mhm.
multiple competitions in a row now, um, and is only getting better and is young and is only going to continue to improve. I think Brooke being just like another top five finish at a major event, having multiple at the games, and she gets a lot of flack because she is such a big personality, one of the most
Mm,
followed athletes, and she has this massive following, and people like to poo-poo the fact that she hasn't had a podium yet, whatever. Um, she just continues to notch strong
mm,
finishes at in big fields at big events. So a huge credit to her. Spiegel, I thought did great in seventh.
yeah,
Really like the this is like what is really good for her. Like at Rogue, she's going to have a couple really, really good finishes where
mhm,
maybe only Laura, Tia, and one other person might get in front of her, and then she's going to have her bad finishes. But she's really able to capitalize on the good finishes here to have a successful Rogue finishing seventh. So Emma Tom, yeah, obviously great too. I know that um, talking with her at Wadapalooza SoCal. She's excited for the event and everything like that, but wasn't quite feeling like at her peak, but still
yeah.
another tremendous performance. And she was the highest, I believe she was the highest qualifier. We had that conversation before.
I think you're right
Um,
about yeah, that was,
so
we did, and we'll talk about another one that I think Lauren got right, uh, on the men's side, and
mhm.
I'll start with what I like the Jason Hopper, Dallin Pepper, Ricky Garrard thing that was going on there for that final spot on the podium was so fun to watch. And I give Jason Hopper a ton of credit because he knew event 4 was not going to be good for him. I think that was gondola. I think that was
Yep.
the board one. And he finished 19th. Okay. That second to last in that event. How did he respond? He comes out, he wins he goes top 6 the next 5 events, he wins 2 of them and he finishes 3rd in another one. Like to be able to have the mental fortitude to bounce back from that, because I know everyone says, "Oh, I take it event by event." But if you finish second to last, like that's got to have an effect. And the
Hmm.
fact that he was able to bounce back from that, and then I love the finish of that final event where he just like threw off his belt and was like, "Let's," you know, was
Hmm.
awesome. So super happy for Jason to finish on the podium. It comes at the expense of people that I also wanted. Like I wanted 9 people to finish on the podium, which is impossible. Um, but I loved watching that. Like I thought the men's side was just much closer because you don't have a Fraser or a Tia in there. But man, Jeff Adler, that's the Jeff Adler that I thought we would see at the games had he competed. Just
Yeah.
super consistent. Only won one event, nothing outside the top 9. But man, he looks good.
Yeah. Only male athlete to have all of the finishes in single digits. Only him and Tia were the only two athletes that kept everything in single digits, and they both walk away as victors. I, Man, I'm just that 118th place finish in event three for Brent was
Yeah.
like, I mean, credit to him. He also bounced back and was 35 points. So it's about what, seven placings on the leaderboard. So if he even just finishes 11th, we're they're even on points there. It's just you're like, I wanted that for him as well. But seeing Jeff kind of pick back up where we expected him to, like one thing you mentioned about Hopper, a ton of credit for him. A couple years ago, that would have derailed him, and he'd
Mhm,
be the first to tell you that like I would have had that bad finish, and I would have gotten in my head, and it
mhm.
would have just I would have come undone with the expectations that I have for myself. And he's worked on that, allowing himself to feel that and then also move past it. In golf, they have what is it like the 90-second rule or 1 minute rule or whatever, where if you hit a bad shot, you give
Yeah.
yourself a minute to like get pissed at yourself, and when that minute is done, it's gone,
But
and
that's
it
hard to
allows you
do,
to
man. That's hard to
really
do
hard.
when you're that
Takes
competitive.
a lot of mental discipline for sure, mental and emotional discipline to do that, um, but that's like to walk off with a
It was
win to
awesome.
get your podium finish. Sick. What more could you
Yeah.
ask for?
That was really cool. Also, Justin Medeiros finishes 8th, but I mean, that was so people know, like, we have a lot of fail safes in place and people like watching to keep us on track as far as who's winning a heat and all that stuff. And all those fail safes failed. Like everyone missed Justin Medeiros being part of that battle. We were so focused on Fikowski and Crouch because at the time, like that, that had bearing on the podium. Like this is
Hmm.
big here. Brent's on a roll, and I like didn't even no one. not a producer, not a spotter, not anybody on the floor, like, realized that Justin Medeiros is creeping up. I actually talked to Justin afterwards, and I came up to him, I said, "Listen, man, I am so sorry. Like, we absolutely whiffed on that." He goes, "No, it's all good, man." He goes, "It's actually helped me out a lot because I was like, they're not saying my name, and I know I'm really close to these guys, and okay, wait a minute, like I'm like right there. Why aren't they talking about me?" And it allowed him to sneak over the finish. And I was genuinely shocked. I was like, "Wait a minute, did this guy finish?" I had that moment at the Masters games with Sean Ramirez, and I had like we absolutely whiffed it. I'm sorry about that, but
Hmm.
I thought that it was just like even that was just a cool moment. Like even when it went wrong, it was fun. But I'm like Brent Fikowski to me is so compelling because I feel like this is the best version of him that we have seen in his career, and he's calling
Yes.
it.
Yep. It's it's tough because you see that 1-2 punch finish that he had in the duel and then the pegboard,
Mhm,
where it's like when he's on, he can just, I mean, he is as good as anyone in the sport when he's on, and he's like clicking on all cylinders.
mhm,
Because in his event win, you could tell that he knew he was going to win, and he had something in his back pocket that nobody had in terms of approach and strategy and how he was going to manage that event. And it's like that. That's what made him. That's what gave him his nickname. That's what made him such an interesting athlete and provided intrigue even amongst other athletes that are his peers, right?
mhm,
Because they look and they're like, "How did you do that? Like, what way did you see? There's like those, you go to all the different mind types and how people problem solve, and his is just one of the different types in terms of that.
mhm.
And it it was cool to see him get into that duel with Guy, and Guy kind of give it to him a little bit when it's just them two on the floor. And in our post game interview with him on our social, he was like, "I know it's messed up. I know you're supposed to be nice to old people, but still," and like was like joking with him, which is hilarious because that stems from them being on Team World together at Wadapalooza, where everybody was kind of messing around, and I think Guy got to get involved in some of the trash talk that was going on there with some of the older guys, and then he comes right back and wins the next event and could have been back to back and gets that moment with the interview on the sideline interview, and you felt the whole place pulling for him, and that felt like a proper swan song for him. But
Mhm.
even still, to go out on top, you hear some people talking about like, oh, the physical, the mental, the spiritual, the other external factors that play when it comes to like the grind that this sport has. And if any of those aren't 100% yes, then all of it's a no.
Yeah.
You hear that sometimes with like athletes walking away, and you're like, huh, how is that? You still have so much talent
Mhm.
and ability, and it's like, nope. Like if one of those cups isn't full, then I know I'm not going to be at my best personally, and that means I can't do it. And I also think it adds a little bit of legitimacy to him focusing on the PFAA. It's
Yeah.
like this guy clearly has more to give to the sport on the athlete side, but he's choosing to go to this other way to help the sport, and that's just more powerful that way.
Yeah. And uh, I think too, there's something to be said for going out on top. And he is like leaving it, like you said, there's clear that there's more in the tank here.
Yeah.
And this is how, when we think about Brent Fikowski's career, and I will use a different sport and a different athlete, but like what Aaron Rodgers is going through right now with the Jets, like, man, maybe you should have just hung it up when you left the Packers.
Yeah,
This is not helping.
that's
You
brutal.
don't want to be the last guy at the party, and Brent is clearly leaving like at the right time. Uh,
Yeah, which like John Elway, right? Back to back Super Bowls, and
yeah, get
I'm
out.
out.
You're done.
Yeah.
You have nothing more you need to prove. But he will be missed. But I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what he can accomplish. But overall, it was a great competition. Like it was unfortunate that you had the two injuries during the duel. Uh, but I will give like the fact that they changed that. They're like, nope, we're changing this right now to prevent this from happening. Injuries are part of it. That stuff happens. Like I don't think it was funny because I was talking to Alexis Tatois, who is
Karen
Carolyn
Prevost.
Pluto's, yeah, partner, and Carolyn tested this, and Alexis was saying that when Carolyn tested it because of the height of it, because of her height, she wasn't able to rebound like that. And it
Yep.
was, and even talking to Pat Sherwood, who, the programming head on that guy, he was like, he's like, this doesn't raise a red flag when I see, so it's only 5. Um, but yeah, so I don't
Mhm.
think that this was like it was unfortunate. And I
I
give them credit for saying right away, okay, you can't do it mid heat, obviously, because
Yeah.
now times are going to be, but when they got through that they said, nope, we're changing this right now. We're doing burpees. And that was it.
Yeah, for sure. And it was the right call. And the I saw some people being like, well, why did they figure this out in the first place? And I think that is a very clear like misunderstanding of how dynamic the sport is in terms of the variables that go into it, whether it's testing, whether it's programming, and we've seen this before, that their athletes always exceed expectations on the competition floor when you add intensity and adrenaline and environment. And that also lends itself to finding new ways to problem solve, sometimes on the fly,
Mm.
that tens, 20s, sometimes even hundreds of athletes hadn't figured out before.
Yeah.
Where and sometimes like all it takes is one, right? Like a lot of people, most of those athletes didn't think to rebound those. And then you see
I don't
Danielle
think
Brandon,
good. Yeah.
yeah, and you see Danielle Brandon doing it, and the way it was gliding over those, and then suddenly everyone goes, "Oh, okay, maybe I should try it." And like you said, if the athlete's testing, that thought process, that discovery process, didn't go through their mind because they're not actually competing and
Mhm.
they're not fighting in the same way that those other people are at the arena. It's easy for things like that to go to go unnoticed. I won't even say for them to miss it because like you don't even know what you're missing at that point. You're trying to turn over every stone, and it's not like anyone has ever done burpees over a hay bale like that
Yeah.
before, like the big bale like that.
Mhm.
So you run the processes. Rogue and their team have done this countless times and tried to do this, and sometimes that stuff happens. And more importantly, when it did, they made the right call
Yeah.
in course correcting.
I think that was the most important thing. But yeah, it was unfortunate for Henrik and Gabby. But,
Yeah.
good on Rogue for saying, "Okay, let's fix this right now."
Hmm.
Uh, I gotta give a shout out too to the strongman and strongwoman competitors, Mitch Hooper and Inez Carrasquillo for winning. Like that, those were fun to watch. So many great moments in that competition as well. And I hope some CrossFitters watch that and are now a fan. I hope that some strongman fans watch some CrossFit stuff and they're a fan because behind the scenes it's really cool when you talk to Laws and you talk to Dr. Bill Crawford, people who are really big into the strongman thing, Jerry Pritchett, uh, they all start talking a little bit about the CrossFit athletes and asking some questions, and you can tell they're kind of getting interested in it. And it's just been fun to sort of. I've become a fan of strongman, and to watch them now be kind of become a fan of the CrossFit stuff, or at least be aware of it and start to ask questions has been pretty cool. So I look, I think overall it was a fantastic event, and like I said, I wanted to get away from it for a little bit to see if I still felt the same way about it, but it was probably one of the best events I've been a part of ever, and it was
Yeah.
just I think that it's only gonna get better. Yeah, I can't wait to
Yep.
see what they add. I hope they do it there next year. I think they are. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I don't know how they
Please, 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 because I
I
want
don't
to
know
go.
because I met some and I forget their names. God, I wish I could remember. They're all super nice. We met some people at the hotel. Like that was really the only socialization I had. I went from literally the airport to the hotel, venue, hotel, venue, hotel, venue, hotel, airport out. Like I didn't see anything, but there were some fans that I got to talk to, and some were like, "Oh yeah, come out next year. We'll go play St. Andrews." I was like, "Okay, listen. First of all, I don't golf well, but I will 100% do that. Like
Yes,
I'll put on the knickers and the funny hat, and I'll go full all in and just hack my way through that course." But the
100%.
fans were super nice and welcoming. The environment was fantastic. So yeah, I think Europe. It just proves that Europe needs more big events because the juice is still there with the crowds. Not that it's not here in the United States, but people were asking about that, and it's just like there's so many options here in the U.S. You can do 2 Whatapaluzzas. You can do, you used to be able to do Rogue. You can do the games. You can do 2 semifinals. Uh,
Hmm.
all that. So there's just a lot of options. Whereas there's not
It's
like that.
just, and those high level competitions have been around for longer here. Even
Sure.
going back to like what we said before in our preview, I believe, with like the ECC, the OC Throwdown,
Mhm.
like all the old, like the Granite Games, like all the big events that used to be more prominent, like they've just, it's just been around a lot longer. So
Mhm.
you have this kind of blasé attitude
Yeah.
to that type of competition, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else you want to add about Rogue?
Um, I think Mitch Hooper calling his shot about how the deadlift will play out, and subsequently from there on out, to me was like, oh yeah, he's gonna win it just from the first get go.
Mhm.
Thor went out, lifted 1,010 pounds on the deadlift, and it was
It's
insane.
not.
And he pulled it like it was,
It's like watching you do 300.
yeah, yeah.
You know.
It's a warm up set on the way up, and but Mitch was like, I'm just gonna go hit 975 high nines, get second place, minimize the damage, and not to Thor, and go out and smash a bunch of the remaining events. And he did,
Yeah.
and he was far and away the best athlete on the floor for the Strongman.
Mhm. Okay. So yeah, awesome event. I'll probably go back and watch some of the coverage. I haven't. But before we get to our PRs and no reps, we actually do have uh, some community support. I had someone reach out to me from CrossFit Endemic,
Hmm.
and he did he give me his name? I don't think he did. But he said that he and his wife own CrossFit Endemic just outside of Fort Carson Army Post. He's also a realtor. Currently represent a client who is a prior service Green Beret and has fallen ill with a rare autoimmune disease called spondyloarthritis. Essentially, the disease is an advanced form of arthritis that causes widespread joint damage and has forced my client to an early retirement from the military. He's in need of several more joint replacement surgeries, had his right wrist and hip replacements completed due to his disease. He currently lives at a KOA in an RV with his wife and 4 kids until we can get him settled into a house. His future surgeries are on hold. The Special Forces Foundation has set up a foundation for him to help raise funds for a down payment on a home that will fit his needs and that we can have retrofitted with the necessary handicap accessible modifications. So the link, and I'll throw this up on the screen, is at specialforcesfoundation.org/SGM r-Seidel, which is, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, SEIDL. So so if you happen to be watching this, you can see it. There it is. So you go to the site, Hero Sacrifice deserves our support, and you can donate button, and then you can see his Sergeant Major Brian Seidel and his family. You can see them, great looking family, and yeah, just something that I wanted to get out there. If you guys can help, this seems to be a really great cause. Again, it's
100%.
specialforcesfoundation.org/SGMR-Seidel, which is SEIDL. All right, so check out the website, or you can even go to if you're on Instagram, you can check out CrossFit Endemic, and I'm sure they'll have a link there. But yeah, just want to get that out because that's a good cause. And if any of you guys have anything out there that you want help with, you want to get the word out on, please share the details with us via our personal Instagrams, our Talking Elite Fitness Instagram account. Make sure you give us as many details as possible because we always want to send people to the right place to make sure that people are getting the help that they need. Okay, PRs and no reps. Start with a no rep.
I'm gonna no rep swaddles without zippers.
Oh, you don't do it the old-fashioned way where see you fold it. Was it? You make the triangle. There's
Make the
one
triangle on the top. One side, pin the arm down,
the arm
tuck
down.
it underneath. Yep.
Yeah.
Up to get the feet cross.
Wow.
Then you do a Mesoamerican rain dance and
Yeah.
hope it
Just open
holds.
it. Yep.
We broke open one of the ones with the zippers that we have,
Uh,
and I just put him in it,
yeah.
zipped it up, and he was just like,
I'm good to
out.
go,
I
man.
was like, what the hell? Nobody.
Just wait till someone gives you the button-up pajamas at like 3 in the Oh, those are the worst. They should just be illegal. People who do that
Yep.
hate. It's just not fun.
I don't
Um,
want to. I don't want to use fine motor skills at 2 a.m.
yeah, no, exactly. Right after I've changed a diaper and I probably got some of it on me and I need it. No, you don't need that. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Hmm.
I don't think I have a no rep. I got a couple PRs. I'm going to PR smart people. I saw this article the other day that the Voyager probe is like 15 that was launched. It was launched in 1977. All right. It is 15 billion miles away from us. And these brainiacs at NASA are still finding ways to fix it, like through radio signals and turning different transmitters on. It's unbelievable. I mean, the fact that there are people this smart that can figure that out is pretty incredible to me. So smart people. That's one of my PRs.
That's that's insane.
Yeah. That's
That's one of those things that I don't think people have realized how absurd that is.
no. I'm like, it's 15 like once if something's across the room for crying out loud, I'm like, ooh, that's gonna take a while. But this is 15 billion miles away, and they're still fixing the damn thing.
God.
And it's nearly 50 years old.
Oh,
Crazy. So I just had to give a shout out to smart people. You're underappreciated, but thank you for what you do. You got a PR?
I'm just going to PR the hospital staff,
Yeah.
the nurses there that were fantastic, um, and then our support staff at home. Our family has been crucial to this, and then PR my wife most importantly.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad. I hope she's getting a little rest.
100%. I
Good job, Tiff.
You know, it's funny. You hear the like people without kids, right? They're like, "Oh, do you think like if guys had to give birth, you'd be able to do it?" And then people are like, "Oh,
Oh
yeah, yeah, yeah."
no.
I, I, I walked. I mean, I could have walked out of the room and been like, "Nope,
Yeah. What was it
no."
like? I remember Robin was it no, he was a comedian. So he described, I think it was Carol Burnett, the old comedian said, giving birth is like taking your bottom lip and pulling it over your head.
Oh God,
So I say, okay. Yeah, I want no part of that. No, it's
yeah,
you
no
realize
chance.
that
Yep.
women are infinitely tougher than like just so much tougher than men when it comes to that stuff.
Hmm.
Like, yep, no, I'm gonna tap out on that. Thank you very much. Not gonna I want our species would die off if it were up to men to like be the child bearer. Just I mean, I'm sorry. That's the fact.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. No, I got to PR you for being a dad, man. Congratulations. Welcome to it. You're gonna be awesome. I cannot wait to meet Miles. I mean, you're gonna have
Thank you.
so much fun. It is going to be the toughest, most challenging thing you do, but it will be the most rewarding and most fun that you're going to have. And every day, like, and I think I said this to Mars and Heber one time because I remember they came and visited. This is shortly after Max got born, and we were talking to him. And I think that CrossFitters are uniquely positioned to be very good parents because we are used to on a daily basis going and getting our you know teeth kicked in, but having one thing go right that makes it all worth it. And that's like
Mm,
the early days of being a parent. Like you're just getting your
wow.
teeth
Yeah.
kicked in, and then but something happens where like he'll smile at you, or he'll say something, or he'll like, and then you're like, oh no, it's all everything's fine. I can't wait to come back tomorrow. So that's
Spot on. Oh cow.
so. All right, that is going to do it for today. Thanks to our sponsors, Box Basics. Head to shopboxbasics.com. Remember, guys, you're going to have some awesome Black Friday deals coming up. Like if you're looking for the get something for the CrossFitter in your life, shop Box Basics. We'll have you covered. Also, Thirdzy, thirdzy.com/TEF. You're going to save 20%. That stuff is, so, like I said, I PR'd my sleep on a plane. I don't sleep on planes. I slept 4 hours. All right. That's
I'm
epic.
impressed. I'm
That's
impressed.
like me running like a set, like a sub 7 mile, on no warm up, but, and not uphill. Like that's kind of what that would be the equivalent if I had to liken that to a physical challenge. All right. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend. Sorry we're late, but obviously Tommy had a big life event that we had to, work around. Tommy had to become a dad. So, you know, threw a wrench in the schedule. Back next week with a lot more. Yeah, we'll have more news, I think, next week. So, meantime, take care of each other. Be better. And we'll talk to you guys